Hi, this is Daryl Meyer from Keller, Texas. Today is Thursday, July 15th, 2010. This first story is out of WorldNet Daily. It says Palestinians preparing for Israeli strike on Iran. They're planning evacuations, attacks on Jewish state's home front. This is out of Jerusalem. The Palestinian Authority has told its intelligence and security agencies to study the consequences of an Israeli strike against Iran's nuclear facilities, WorldNet Daily has learned. The PA directed its intelligence agencies to prepare a study detailing the effect an Israeli strike on Iran would have on so-called Palestinian refugees in Iraq, Lebanon, and Syria, according to Palestinian security sources. The sources say PA agencies were also told to prepare a security contingency plan for dealing with Iranian retaliation against Israel that would include Hamas and other Islamic groups launching attacks against Israel from both the Gaza Strip and the PA-controlled West Bank. Among other things, the PA is studying how to get refugees out of Lebanon if Israel retaliates there against Hezbollah, said one security source. Israel has long feared that any strike on Iran would result in counterattacks against the Israeli home front by Iranian proxies, including Hezbollah to the north and Hamas in Gaza toward the south. Also, there's a concern Syria could get involved in any such conflict. Syria is in a military alliance with Iran, although the Obama administration has been trying to woo Syria away from the Iranian axis with very little progress. Syria has advanced missiles and rockets that can blanket every part of Israel, while Hezbollah has rearmed itself with tens of thousands of rockets and missiles since Israel's 2006 war that targeted Hezbollah in Lebanon. Whew, boy. This is just getting stronger and stronger every day. Of course, you know that Isaiah 17:1 prophecy still looms. Damascus will no longer exist as a city and will become a ruinous heap. There's very few things short of a nuclear bomb that will cause that to happen. Yes, I'm talking a lot about Iran today. This out of Time.com from, I guess, Times Online, Time, the magazine. This says that an attack on Iran is back on the table. In late 2006, George Bush met with the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the Pentagon and asked if military action against Iran's nuclear program was feasible. The unanimous answer was no. Airstrikes could take out some of Iran's nuclear facilities, but there's no way to eliminate all of them. Some of the nuclear labs were located in heavily populated areas, others were deep underground, and Iran's ability to strike back by unconventional means, especially through its Hezbollah terrorist network, was formidable. The military option was never officially taken off the table, at least that's what the U.S. officials always said, but the emphasis was on the implausibility of a military strike. Another war in the Middle East is the last thing we need, Secretary of Defense Robert Gates wrote in 2008. It would be disastrous on a number of levels. But Gates is sounding more belligerent these days. I don't think we're prepared to even talk about containing a nuclear Iran, he told Fox News on June 20th. We do not accept the idea of Iran having nuclear weapons. In fact, Gates was reflecting new reality in the military and intelligence communities. Diplomacy and economic pressure remain the preferred means to force Iran to negotiate a nuclear deal, but there isn't much hope that's going to happen. Will sanctions deter them from their ambitions with regards to nuclear capability? CIA Director Leon Panetta told ABC News on June 27th. Probably not. So the military option is very much back on the table. So what's changed? Well, he started to rethink this last November. A recently retired U.S. official with extensive knowledge of the issue said, "We offered the Iranians a really generous deal. They pretty much shot it down, so what do we do now?" So here is the U.S. talking about striking Iran. And gosh, they have all these ships over there next to Iran. If you look on a map and you see where Iran is, the U.S. military has strategic military outfits surrounding Iran on every side right now. They're doing that for a reason. The story goes on to say one other factor has brought the military option to a low boil. Iran's Sunni neighbors really want the U.S. to do it. When United Arab Emirates Ambassador Youssef al-Otaiba said on July 6 that he favored a military strike against Iran despite the economic and military consequences to his country, he was reflecting an increasingly adamant attitude in the region. The Saudis in particular raised the issue with surprising ardor. Everyone from the Turks to the Egyptians to the Jordanians are threatening to go nuclear if Iran does. That is seen as a real problem in the most volatile region in the world. What happens, for example, if Saudi Arabia gets a bomb and the deathless monarchy there is overthrown by Islamist radicals? Scary. Okay. Here we go. Hang on, people. We're in for a wild ride. Here's a story out of Haaretz.com. Russia to Iran. Explain military components of your nuclear program. The President's remarks reflect growing Russian concern over Iran's contentious program. Until now, Russia has been hesitant to join Western efforts against the Islamic Republic. Russian President Dmitry Medvedev said today he wanted an explanation from Tehran over the military components of Iran's nuclear program, according to a Reuters report. I would like to say that Iran is our rather active trading partner and has been tested by time, but that does not mean we are indifferent to the way Iran is developing its nuclear program, and we are not indifferent to how the military components of the corresponding program look, Medvedev said. In this respect, we are waiting for the appropriate explanations from Iran, he said. The information we are getting, it comes from open channels and reports from the secret services, shows these programs are developing, and Iran must find the courage to start fully fledged cooperation with the international community, Medvedev said. The U.S. administration of President Barack Obama has made a priority of winning Russian support for a tougher line towards Iran, which Western countries suspect of seeking nuclear weapons. Iran says its nuclear program is peaceful, of course. We all know that's probably true, right? Russia, which is building Iran's first nuclear power plant, voted to tighten sanctions against Iran last month in the UN Security Council, and Medvedev said this week Tehran was gaining the ability to make nuclear weapons. Okay. Nuclear weapons. Just what we need. A world lining up with nuclear weapons. Sounds like a wonderful thing. Yesterday I did a video telling you that Jesus Christ was God in flesh. And boy, oh boy, does that start the conversation rolling. It's funny because, of course the non-believers, they're going to throw their 2 cents in there. But it's funny how a few Christians can't quite see this truth. And especially when they live on 1 or 2 little verses where Jesus said he was a man, or he was praying to God, and was he praying to himself, and all these things that they obviously do not understand. And I know it's hard because our feeble little minds can't understand all the thoughts and ways of God. I've got a bachelor degree. I've got actually 2 degrees. I don't think I'm a wise man, but I'm no dummy either. And I can't fully grasp so many of the wonders and mysteries of God. However, I do grasp this, that only God, in the form of a man named Jesus, could do the many things that Jesus did. Let me go to Mark 10, verse 18. This is, I'm sure you're familiar with this passage. This was when a guy came up to Jesus and said, "Good teacher, what shall I do that I may inherit eternal life?" So Jesus said, "Why do you call me good? No one is good but one, that is God." So as Jesus continued his teaching ministry, a man with an important question approached him and asked him this. And on the surface, this seems like a noble thing. Here's a man who wants to know what he needs to do in order to make things right with God before he leaves this life. Sounds like the kind of question Jesus would applaud and compliment, but he doesn't. Instead, he responds with the question, "Why do you call me good?" That's a curious comeback because, of all things, why would Jesus ask him this? Was he somehow deflecting the compliment? Was he perhaps suggesting that he wasn't as good as this man made him out to be? Just the opposite. Because in that time and culture, the term good went way beyond the way we use it today. More accurately, it meant moral perfection, which is something that only God can lay claim to. You can see that in Psalm 14:3. Psalm 14:3 says, They have all turned aside. They have together become corrupt. There is no one who does good. No, not one. So in essence, Jesus' question here is a direct challenge to this, saying, you're ascribing godlike attributes to me, but do you really and truly believe that I speak with the authority of God? It's easy to give Jesus a lot of lip service, as a lot of Christians do these days. But what do we do when He exercises His divine authority in our lives? Do we do what He tells us, or do we just kind of blow it off? Our response reveals how deep His authority really runs in our lives. So as this story goes, Jesus did exercise His divine authority by telling this man to do something he didn't want to do. He said, sell all you have, give it to the poor. But you know, Jesus questioned him. He said, why do you call me good? No one is good but God. So it kind of imposes the fact that you're correct in calling me good, because I am God. God bless you. Hope to see you tomorrow.